This is Techno, a show about innovations that can change lives. We're going to explore the intersection of hardware and humanity, and we're doing it in a unique way. This is a show about science by scientists. Let's check out our team of hardcore nerds. Dr. Crystal Dilworth is a molecular neuroscientist who specializes in nicotine research. Tonight, the new science on e-cigarettes.
I don't think that anyone really wants to addict like a whole new generation to nicotine.
Why they are so addicting to kids and what's really in those fruity flavors.
Breathing particles causes people to die of heart attacks, plain and simple.
I'm Phil Torres. I'm an entomologist. Tonight, I meet the Indiana Jones of space archaeology and see the lost Egyptian city she discovered from outer space.
We're the same people that built the pyramids, and we're the same people that built Stonehenge.
Costa Gramatis is an engineer who's designed everything from bionic eyes to space satellites. And Lindsay Moran is a former CIA operative and analyst. That's our team. Now let's do some science. Hey guys, welcome to Techno. I'm Phil Torres, joined today by Lindsay Moran, Costa Gramatis, and Dr. Crystal Dilworth. Now, here at Techno, we've touched on this idea of electronic cigarettes, and we're starting to see more and more of them out there in public places. So we decided to go back. And Crystal, what did you find?
Right, so as a nicotine researcher, I pay attention to the buzz surrounding electronic cigarettes. There's recently been some new studies come out, both on the effect of e-cigarettes and adolescent use of them, as well as their safety in general. So let's take a look.
They're fruity, flavorful, fun, and more popular than ever. The explosion in advertising dollars and sales of electronic cigarettes are now in the billions, as the devices are being touted as a safer alternative to smoking tobacco cigarettes.
I think it's the best thing you can do for yourself if you smoke.
When I used to smoke cigarettes, I'd wake up in the morning, my lungs would hurt really bad, and I started vaping, and after that it just progressively got better and better and better.
But are the health claims for this new generation of cigarettes really true, or are they a smokescreen?
Most concerns about the health risks associated with the use of electronic cigarettes has focused on the nicotine-containing liquids themselves. But research done here at UC Riverside has demonstrated that we shouldn't just be concerned with the liquid, but also with the devices themselves.
As a nicotine researcher, I wanted to find out more about some cutting-edge findings by Monique Williams at the UC Riverside lab.
You do your experiments in lab and you hope to find something, and it all started with one cartomizer when we dissected it, and we found that there was burning on the fibers, and it was just like a gold mine, because then we started dissecting and we kept finding this over and over again. I never thought in a million years I would find this.
The breakthrough finding was that the aerosols e-cigarettes emit contain not just water vapor, they also have their own version of secondhand smoke.
All right, so the e-cig convention just had the smoke alarm go off because of all this vape that's in the convention center. So we are evacuating the building due to vape because we've set off the smoke alarms.
With e-cigs, there's no combustion to produce the carcinogens found in conventional cigarettes. Instead, there's a battery-powered atomizer that heats up a liquid mixture inside. This mixture turns into vapor, which the user inhales.
What does the information from the electron microscope tell you?
We found that, they're metal devices, so they contain many different metal components. And then we took that a step further, where we started looking at the fluid that saturated the fibers, and we found that there were metal particles, mainly tin, that were found in the fluid as well as coating the fibers.
These pictures are tin particles from the fluid. So I should be concerned that there are similar fibers in my lungs if I am an e-cigarette user. Wow. And so this leads to respiratory complaints and other type of, I would say, lung tissue agitation?
Absolutely.
Even though e-cigarettes are not regulated by the FDA, many public health officials still concede that they are less toxic than smoking tobacco.
I don't want to see people galloping to assume that this is the solution to the problem of smoking before they know its health effects and its public health effects.
Professor Suzanne Schick is a researcher at UCSF who is about to embark on an FDA-funded study on how e-cigarettes affect the cardiovascular system.
I'm going to model puffing on an e-cigarette, and what I blow out will be what the person who is smoking it is inhaling. So this is a laser photometer. It's an instrument I use to measure the mass of particles that are in the air. So we're at 4 micrograms per cubic meter right now. And the moment I start flowing that across the inlet to the particle monitor,
400, wow.
yeah, now we're actually spiking because this thing won't read over 100 milligrams. So we shifted from micrograms to over 100 milligrams. It's a lot of particles. The reason I care about particles is that breathing particles causes cardiovascular disease, causes people to die of heart attacks, plain and simple.
So do you think that given that we now know that e-cigarette vapor contains these metal particles, that that's healthier still than the smoke that you would be inhaling from a conventional cigarette?
There's lots of pros and cons with that. There's over 7,000 chemicals in a conventional cigarette, whereas electronic cigarettes, they haven't identified all 7,000 of those. There are significantly a lot fewer. So in that aspect, yes, it is better than conventional cigarettes, but I cannot come out and say that using electronic cigarettes is safer because we're not sure what health effects these humectants are going to cause.
What are you most concerned about as a scientist?
It's the metal particles. And we also found metal nanoparticles. When you inhale a nanoparticle, it can actually be deposited deeper into the lung. Most times it can either pass through into the bloodstream or it'll collect and it can't be removed.
Do you think that they have all this new science coming out and it's driving legislation? Do you think it's a little too early for that to happen?
Personally, I do. I think that the jury's not out yet. All the papers aren't published on exactly what the dangers with electronic cigarettes are. We know that we don't like to be around vapor the same way we don't like to be around conventional cigarette smoke, but we don't know anything necessarily about how that vapor is going to contribute to, for instance, secondhand smoke, which you think of as cancerous. We don't know that.
How far away are we from knowing that?
Well, the FDA is funding several studies, and so there's ongoing research now, and research takes time, so we'll have to see.
Now, do you think the government should be precautionary and wait for the results, like make some decision now and then see what the results are just for safety reasons?
Well, we know that it's not entirely water vapor. We know that there are particulate matter in the vapor that we should be concerned about. This is everything from heavy metal particles that come from the heating filaments in the e-cigs to 2 types of nitrosamines, formaldehyde, and other things that we know are carcinogenic. So it's not entirely the healthy water vapor that we're being told it is.
Coming up, the e-cigarette advertisement blitz that's gone viral, and why scientists are so concerned about children and teenagers.
How surprising was this result?
Strongest relationship between cigarette smoking and health is in the field of lung cancer. There is a very strong relationship and probably a causal relationship between heart disease and cigarette smoking.
This bombshell report 50 years ago by U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Luther Terry was a shocking game changer for the multi-billion-dollar tobacco industry.
In this nationwide survey of general practitioners, surgeons, throat specialists, diagnosticians, and so on, the brand named most was Camel.
Up to that time, cigarettes were a staple of life, even for doctors, like in this 1949 ad for Camel cigarettes.
Yes, according to this survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Try Camels yourself.
That was tobacco advertising then. This is now.
Now that I've switched to blue, I feel better about myself.
Dr. Pamela Ling has spent 10 years studying tobacco marketing. Her recent study of e-cigarette advertising found that like the old ads for tobacco, many e-cig ads also make health-related claims.
I finally found a smarter alternative to cigarettes.
We know from looking at cigarette advertising that things like putting smoking in the movies, having celebrity endorsements, having doctors' endorsements, which haven't been around again for like 50 years, but now you're seeing again.
Many smokers say e-cigs help them kick years of a nicotine habit, as Stephen Dorff tells us in this blue ad.
I've been a smoker for 20 years, and I just found the smarter alternative. Blue e-cigs.
But how much are e-cigs a gateway to smoking regular tobacco?
So this is the first ad that we've looked at that actually made the claim that it's healthier than conventional cigarettes, right? Because it's vapor, not smoke.
I don't think that anyone really wants to addict like a whole new generation to nicotine, but a lot of the things from the advertising that appeals to youth could potentially do that.
Electronic cigarettes have been presented as smoking cessation agents for people that are trying to quit smoking. But now that these devices have gone mainstream, they've gotten the attention of regulators and scientists. Here at the University of California, San Francisco, studies have shown that electronic cigarette use is associated with more conventional cigarette use in teens.
What we found is that the teens who used e-cigarettes were more likely to be tobacco cigarette smokers. We also found that of the kids who were smokers, the ones who used e-cigarettes were less likely to have stopped smoking. We were certainly surprised at the magnitude of the findings.
Did you find that teens had a preference towards either conventional cigarettes or e-cigarettes, or was it often combined use?
So there are really high levels of dual use. That's definitely common, and also during, adolescence when there's a lot of experimenting.
From 2011 to 2012, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that e-cigarette use more than doubled among U.S. middle and high school students.
20% of middle school students who had ever used e-cigarettes had never tried a conventional tobacco cigarette, not even a puff. And 7% of the high school students who used e-cigarettes had never tried a conventional tobacco cigarette.
These findings suggest that a lot of teens are making their first exposure to nicotine with e-cigarettes.
It's in some ways easier to smoke an e-cigarette because it's less irritating to the lungs. You're going to have less of a desire to cough because there's no burning vegetable matter inside of an e-cigarette.
Especially alluring to kids are the flavors of all the e-cigs, from fruits to candy to juices.
We have over 100 flavors. We're basically the yogurt land of e-juice.
As a chemist, personally, one of my concerns is we have all of these food grade and FDA approved colors and flavors, but those are approved for ingestion through eating, not through inhalation, especially after being heated to the temperatures.
The CDC recently released a report that found the number of phone calls to poison control centers in the US related to e-cigarettes has increased from just about 1 call per month in 2010 to nearly 200 calls per month this year. More than half the calls involve children aged 5 and under, who are most at risk from exposure to the liquid nicotine in the e-cigarette cartridge. Following the landmark 1964 Surgeon General's report linking cigarettes to disease, health warnings were required on every pack of cigarettes. Dr. Lauren Dutra sees a similar need for e-cigarettes.
How is nicotine, which is an addictive substance, any different than caffeine, which is also an addictive substance?
Nicotine works differently in the brain than many other chemicals. The body actually thinks that nicotine is something that's naturally occurring, and the addictive potential of this drug is higher than other substances that people use that are considered less harmful.
Several cities and states have already banned or restricted the use of e-cigarettes in public places.
It's a semantics debate whether you want to call it a tobacco product or not, but the fact of the matter is they contain nicotine derived from tobacco.
E-cigarettes have been around since 2003, and the makers and sellers of the devices can see change coming.
The FDA is going to regulate, and we're prepared for that.
Crystal, I understand you brought us something?
I did. So I have 2 examples here, and I want to see if you can tell just from looking which one is the electronic cigarette and which one is the conventional cigarette. Can you tell?
Nope. They look exactly the same.
I would assume the one on the left was the electronic one.
Yeah.
So this is the electronic cigarette. This one has been made as a smoking cessation agent. It's trying to mimic the conventional cigarette exactly, but this is not what all electronic cigarettes look like. They're really trying to focus on e-cigarette use as giving you a sense of self-expression. I get to choose what my mod looks like, what color it is. I get to choose what flavor it is, what color the juice is, and it's an expression of me. If I want to put rhinestones on it, I can.
Can you overdose on this stuff?
Not on these. These disposable electronic cigarettes come with a reasonable amount of nicotine, anywhere from 0 nicotine to about 24 milligrams. But with those customizable larger mods, which you saw in the piece,
There's really no limit. I mean, you can order nicotine online, you can put them in your e-cig juice, and you can vape away.
How does 24 milligrams compare to a normal cigarette?
It's a little bit more than a normal cigarette. So a normal cigarette would be at about 18 milligrams. So it'd give you a little bit more of a buzz than smoking a conventional cigarette would. But the thing about e-cigs, especially for those areas where it hasn't been regulated and you can vape inside, it's continuous use. You have to go outside to smoke a conventional cigarette, but with your e-cig, with no regulation, you can have it all the time. And so it's a constant intake of nicotine, and you're gonna get a lot more.
I know my kids heard about e-cigarettes and just assume that they're safe because they're electronic.
Now guys, I got to meet one of the most innovative archaeologists of our time. But what she's doing is she's using one of these, a satellite, to look back into our history and do things as incredible as map out ancient Egypt. So let's dig in, take a look. To help unearth secrets of the ancient past, we found a scientist who looks down from space and into the future. Dr. Sarah Parkick of the University of Alabama at Birmingham is a pioneering archaeologist. Using satellite imaging, she was the first to map Egypt's lost city of Tanis, creating an incredibly accurate current-day layout of a city that hadn't been seen in 3,000 years. She then used the same technology to discover over 300 tombs and 1,000 ancient settlements. There are many people out there that may see you guys digging around in the dirt and wonder why.
I think if we look back, there is so much we can learn from people in the past about who we are today. But the reality is, we haven't changed. We're the same people that built the pyramids, and we're the same people that built Stonehenge. And when we look at the archaeological record, I think of one story in Egypt. There's an inscription in the Western Desert, and a guy is writing on the face of a cliff, "Man, I can't believe how much I had to drink. My boss is gonna be so angry with me. I'm not gonna be able to make it to work tomorrow." And you think, this is 3,000, 4,000 years ago. Nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed. Well, a few things have changed over the past 4,000 years. The world in which we live has grown incredibly complex, with technology driving the change. Dr. Parkick has embraced technology as a way to advance the field of archaeology. So you're using a satellite to look into the past?
What satellites do is they allow us to be much more focused in terms of our excavations and our survey. Today, as in all scientific fields, archaeology is facing a number of challenges regarding funding as well as access to sites on the ground. And we absolutely need new scientific approaches to allow us to know exactly where to go and what to dig. Otherwise, we're wasting time and wasting money.
To find out how this works, we turn to the experts at Digital Globe who own and operate the largest and most advanced commercial satellite constellation in the world. What is remote sensing?
Remote sensing, believe it or not, we all do. It's sensing without touching something. So our eyesight, our ears, we all do remote sensing. What we are talking about here is a camera, in this case in space, taking pictures of objects without touching them.
Based in Boulder, Colorado, Ball Aerospace is an experienced leader in building and launching satellites. They're constructing the WorldView 3 for Digital Globe. The production floor resembles a giant operating room for spacecraft. It is an incredibly secure location to which we were given rare access. The WorldView 3 satellite represents the latest and greatest advancements in commercial satellite imaging. Flying 380 miles above the Earth, its enhanced image sensors can see through dust, fog, smoke, and haze, and can even see below the Earth's surface, helping archaeologists like Dr. Sarah Parkick discover ancient buried cities, currently invisible to the naked eye.
We already have 5 satellites that can take pictures of the entire globe. So what we have on these satellites are what we call red, green, blue. This is what we see with our naked eye. We also have a band called near infrared. On WorldView 3, we have added more bands in what we call shortwave infrared. This is an area where there is rich information about forestry, agriculture, geology. So there is a lot more we can do with these new bands on WorldView 3 we cannot do with our constellation today.
So it's a new wavelength of light you guys are basically able to detect?
That's correct, and we call it invisible light. within the invisible light, this is the shortwave infrared that gives us some powerful information.
Where Worldview 3 is going to be a game changer is that it will allow archaeologists and scientists to see into the middle infrared. And that's different because it's going to allow us to see what currently are completely invisible signatures from geological samples that are on the ground or buried in the ground.
We are providers of data and information. Our philosophy is there are so many brilliant people out there. Let's leverage their capabilities, their knowledge. So Dr. Parkak took some of the things we are doing and created something we could have never thought about. We would be never looking for space archaeology. We are focusing on current planet, how is it changing? Now we are actually talking about what has happened 4,000 years ago, 10,000 ago, so it's a pleasant surprise.
A not-so-pleasant surprise is the alarming rise in looting at these ancient sites, which is now being detected from space.
Following the Arab Spring, many of the guards at archaeological sites in Egypt and Syria simply went away. And so a number of individuals have gone after archaeological sites, and what we've been able to do with the satellite data is we have mapped thousands of these looting pits. We call the field cultural racketeering. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and what they're doing is they're trading them, in many cases in Syria, like in Syria and Afghanistan and Iraq, for guns. So this is helping to fund and support international insurgency efforts. There are a lot of similarities between blood diamonds and the looting of archaeological sites.
Reda El Arafi is an Egyptian PhD graduate student working with Dr. Parkak on geological and archaeological remote sensing projects in Egypt.
So Reda, what you have here are two satellite images. This one was taken in 2010, before the start of the revolution. One on the right, and one on the left was taken the end of 2012, beginning of 2013. And you can see all these hundreds of little black holes. Those are looting pits.
People have told me in Egypt that since the revolution, we found this kind of looting is increased. It's a very huge disaster for our heritage.
I'm feeling so bad because some people don't know about what they are doing. They just blowing our heritage away, and that's not good because once you destroy it, you will not get it again, and you will destroy your history.
The ultimate goal is to set up training programs so that we can train the really bright, enthusiastic young Egyptian men and women to use this new technology, because ultimately it's the Egyptian people who are responsible for protecting their heritage.
So guys, how cool was that? I mean, people have been archaeologists for centuries, and we are now living in the most exciting time thanks to technology.
What was so exciting for me, coming from a military intelligence background, is I think of us using this technology to discover things like underground bunkers and weapons of mass destruction. So to see it unearthing the secrets of the past, something really fun and exciting, that was really neat.
These are the best commercial satellites, so these can be rented out for these purposes, and I know some governments will probably use them, but they also use it for less nefarious purposes like discovering our past. Thank you guys for the stories as well. Another fascinating week of Techno, and be sure to check us out next time.
Dive deep into these stories and go behind the scenes at aljazeera.com/techno. Follow our expert contributors on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and more.